Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Scott. Are we live? Okay, sorry, we are. So good evening, everyone. My name is Scott Flamand. I'm from Wacomakong. I'm a financial consultant, so I work with First Nations across Canada, and I work with about 43 First Nations. I help them with financial management, as well as home ownership, and I do workshops on helping people restore credit and get into home ownership. So this workshop that we're doing tonight, we've been doing this for about 6 or 7 years in Nipissing. So this is not a new workshop. We put a little spin on it for the Robertson Huron, but essentially this workshop has been delivered in the community for the last 6 years. It's been offered about 2 or 3 times a year. We've offered this to members to teach them how to budget, how to manage their finances, and then eventually get into home ownership or how to renovate this home. Now tonight we're going to put the Robertson Huron spin. Even though we don't know what you're getting, we can all agree that you're going to get something. And the community, the leadership wants to make sure that once you get your money, regardless of how much it is, that you make well-informed decisions how to spend it and where you can use it, and making sure that you don't squander it, right? You want to make informed decisions. So we're going to talk about, Robertson Huron. We're going to talk about credit. We're going to talk about budgeting. We're going to talk about how to buy a car. We're going to talk about how to buy a house, investments. So we'll cover all these topics, and you can answer questions as we go. So tonight we're going to talk about stretching your dollars, managing your settlement, budgeting, understanding credit, managing debt, credit reports, debt servicing, mortgages. Also, we're going to talk about buying a car. That's one of the biggest financial mistakes people make, is buying a car. They don't know how to buy a car. And now that you're getting this Robertson Huron money, it's a good opportunity for you to learn the basics on buying a car. It's not as simple as you might think. There's some things you got to watch out for, especially if you're trading in a vehicle. And that's one of the biggest financial mistakes. We'll talk about that as well. So first of all, I always start this to get everybody's attention. I test your knowledge on the credit card. So most people have credit cards or a line of credit. So let's pretend I have a $1,000 credit card. That's my credit limit, okay? Statement date is the date that they add up what you spent and the interest they're going to charge you, and they mail it to you. Due date is when the payment is due. So let's pretend I max out my credit card. It comes in the mail, says, Scott, you've maxed out your credit card. You spent $1,000, you got nothing left. But I pay it all before the due date. Next month, I max it out again. But I pay it all before the due date. I do that all the time, max it out, but I paid well before the due date. What happens to your credit score? Does it go up, down, or no change? What do you guys think? Does it go up, down? What do you guys think? Up? Would it help you that you think it's going to go up? Okay. Well, what date do you think is important for your credit score? There's 2 dates on there, statement date and due date. There's one date that's more important than the other for your credit score. The statement date, that's correct. Everybody thinks it's the due date. Now, due date is still important, because if you miss the due date, your credit score goes down. And if you miss enough due dates, they cut up your credit card. But your credit score, the calculation is based on statement date. And in fact, your credit score will go down in this example. The reason it would go down is that if you're between 80 and 100% of your credit limit on statement date, not due date, you're high risk. So it's one day of the month that determines your credit score. So the statement date always stays the same. So for example, I have a TD Visa. My statement date was April 6th. Guess what? It's going to be May 6 or 7, June 6 or 7. So if you want to improve your credit score, what you have to do is watch for statement date. Now, the due date is still important. Again, like I said, if you miss due date, your credit score goes down. And if you miss enough due dates, they cut up your credit card. So again, the most important date is actually statement date, okay? So again, here, if you can see, I'm using 100% of my credit on statement date. See, I'm maxed out on the credit, so I'm using 100%. So I'm high risk, so my credit score will go down. Now that you know statement date, I'm going to teach you something I call the credit card trick. This is the fastest way to get your credit score up. Now, credit cards are one of the best ways when you're young to establish credit. They're also one of the fastest ways to ruin credit, this credit card besides the cell phone. Also, one of the best ways to repair credit and get your credit score up is a credit card. So here's the trick. I call it the credit card trick. What you have to do is keep your balance under 30% of your credit limit or lower on statement date for 3 to 4 months or longer. And if you do that, what's going to happen is your credit score will shoot right up. That's the fastest way. There is no other faster way. If you get your Robinson Huron money this week or tomorrow, not that you're going to get it tomorrow, but if you were going to get it tomorrow and you pay off your car loan, your credit score wouldn't go up that much. You do this and get your credit score down to your credit balance down to zero for a couple of months, your score will go up. So now people with bad credit, I help them get a credit card. Did you know it's actually harder to get a credit card than a car loan? Did you know that? It's easier to get a car loan. You ever see those signs on the highway? It says, no credit, bad credit, bankruptcy will still approve you on a car loan. How did they get away with that? How is that possible? How is that possible? Well, it's called security. So when you buy a car, the loan is secured by the car. So if you default, they come and repo the car. A credit card is unsecured. So if you go to North Bay, you buy some furniture, you bring it back to the reserve, then you don't pay Visa. Visa doesn't come and get your furniture out of your house. They put you in collection. So it's unsecured. Now, I get people to get a credit card with bad credit. Now you're really confused, right? You just said it takes a lot. You have to have a good credit score. Well, there's a product in the market. It's called a secured credit card. And you could check with Desjardins. I think Desjardins might have one in Sturgeon Falls. But most people use Capital One. You know those Vikings? Capital One specializes in secured credit card. So what it is it's an actual credit card, but because my credit is bad, I have to provide a security deposit. So for example, if I want a $300 security credit card, I have to give them a security deposit of $300. So it's not a prepaid credit card, it's an actual credit card, but your security deposit, they return it to you in a year, provided you take care of yourself. So what I do is I get them to get a credit card and do this trick, watch statement date, and get your balance under 30% for 3 or 4 months, and then your credit score goes up. Now, with bad credit, people with that secured credit, you can't just get the credit card and not use it. Unfortunately, you have to use it. So that means you use it, pay it, use it. And the reason you got to use it is you got to show a payment pattern. You got to show that you have a payment history, and that's how you build credit. So you got to actually use that credit card that you're using to rebuild your credit. So again, this is one of the fastest ways. The other thing about this trick, though, most people have more than one credit card. So for this trick to work, if you have 3 credit cards, you got to get all 3 under 30% for this trick to work. If you have a line of credit is just a credit card. Same feature. So if you have a line of credit and 2 credit cards, you got to get your line of credit and your 2 credit cards under 30%. And if you do this for 3 to 4 months, your credit score will shoot up, or you'll restore yourself to good credit. Now, I always tell people, do this trick, 4 to 6 months. If you know you're going to buy a car in 6 months, start doing this trick so that when you go to the dealer, you'll have a high credit score. But more importantly, I always tell people who are going for a mortgage, you should do this before you go apply for a mortgage about 6 months so that you get the best interest rate. So this Robinson Huron money that's coming is going to be a great opportunity for people with bad credit to restore their credit. So pay off collections, get a credit card, and do this trick so you can get out of bad credit quite quickly with this Robinson Huron. The other thing I'm excited about this Robinson Huron money, it's going to allow young couples, young families to actually enter the home ownership market right now. Right now, a lot of young families can't because they just can't afford the down payment. Well, now this Robinson Huron money, you could use that as a down payment. So we're hoping a lot of young people, young families get into home ownership with this Robinson Huron money and make that effort to home ownership. Also for low income people, if you're a homeowner, this is a great opportunity to renovate your house. And we're going to talk about renovations and some of the costs you might expect if you're going to do your own renovation with your Robinson. So bottom line, we're just looking to make sure if you're going to invest your money, these are some of the ideas that you have. We're not telling you what to do with your money, okay? These are just some ideas to help you out. Again, we want you, to make sure that the money lasts and that you're not going to squander it. Okay, so again, here on this credit card, again, my credit limit's 1,000, so maybe in July it's 300, I'm at 30%. August, 200, look at that, I'm at 20. September, 10%. Guess what? If I do that, my credit score is going to shoot right up. Now, if you said, Scott, this is me over here. I max out my credit card all the time, but I pay it all off before the due date. You know what I would say to you? I would say, why don't you max out your credit card after the statement date, right? And pay it before the next statement date. You know what your balance is going to be every statement date? 0. And then your credit score is going to shoot right up. So it's really managing the statement date. That's what you're managing, okay? So that's one of the things. How many people knew about that trick? It's a pretty neat trick, eh? Yes. Yeah. This is one of the, yeah. You know, I met with band members today for the one-on-one confidential stuff and giving them financial advice. Half of them I met with before on these, with the other workshops, and they've used this trick and their credit scores have gone up. They were quite amazed. So it does work. You got to be disciplined though. If you really want to buy a house, buy a car, you're going to do this. Okay. Again, this trick, like I said, if you have more than one credit card or line of credit, you got to get everything under 30%. Okay. Again, we're going to talk a little bit about managing your settlement. Again, pay off debts, renovate your home, purchase, build a home, investments in cars. We'll talk about cars and how to invest that. We'll talk about building a home and purchasing a home. I'll talk about that a little later on. But let's talk about paying off debts. Well, rule of thumb, pay off all your high interest debts, credit cards, lines of credit, payday loans. I work with people on payday loans. That is a vicious cycle. Once you get into those payday loans, it's hard to get out. So what you got, this is the perfect time, Robinson, here on clear out. The other thing too, this is a great time for people with bad credit to rebuild their credit. So if you have stuff in collections, if it's within the last six years, you have to pay it off for you to get good credit. If it's over 6 years, that stuff went in collections, don't worry about it. It's the stuff under 6 years. So that's what we got to do. So I teach people how to pull their credit report, and where you can get your credit report. If you're dealing with one of the major banks, including Desjardins, you can pull your credit report on your banking app for free, and it doesn't count as a hit. The only bank that doesn't offer it is TD Canada Trust. But then you can pull it, look at your credit score, and then you can also see what's in collections. And if there's stuff in collections within the last 6 years, you got to go and pay it off, because we need to repay your rebuild your credit. Obviously, you got to repay your Nipissing First Nation debts if you have any. We would like you to pay your arrears. Again, that's up to you. If you're a homeowner in this high interest environment, or if you have a mortgage that hasn't renewed yet, guess what? You should put a lump sum payment on your mortgage. Now, if you're off reserve, you have an off reserve mortgage, there are restrictions. So you're not allowed to pay anything you want. There are some restrictions on some mortgages. For example, my mortgage in Sudbury on my house, I'm allowed to put a lump sum payment of $24,000 per year on a calendar year from January to December. So you have to check with your mortgage company to see what's the maximum you can pay every year. So that's what you should put down, especially if you haven't renewed yet. If your mortgage, like me, I'm at 1.95%. Guess what? I've been putting payments down extra every month because I'm going to be coming up for renew, and I know I'm not going to get 1.95%. So again, also, if you already have a high interest mortgage, this makes perfect sense for you to pay down your mortgage. Again, check with your bank to check for restrictions, and then pay off loans, recreational vehicles. Again, paying off loans. Again, rule of thumb on the loan, car loans, if it's a high interest car loan, pay it off. And the other thing I talk about people, if they're paying off debts, if you're struggling right now paying off debts, then you should pay them off. The debts that you're not struggling with and they're a good low interest rate, you don't necessarily have to pay them off if you can afford them. Because one of the things I like to do is invest. You should invest a lot of your money. So again, you got to be careful how you do pay. The other thing about your mortgages, on-reserve mortgages are a little bit different. You could put as much as you want. There's no restrictions on your on-reserve mortgages. Just the off-reserve mortgages you have to be careful of, okay? Again, renovate your home. You do repairs that are increase the value of your home or extend the useful life of your house. So siding, windows, roof, you can do that. Now, because it's your own money, if you're on reserve, because it's your money, you're not obligated to call housing or call the band office, to get approval. But you know what though? You should call housing and arrange inspections. You should get your house inspected before the renovation, during the renovation, and after the renovation, because you want to make sure that your contractor is doing the right job. The other thing too, you got to be careful when you hire a contractor, because if you tell the contractor, I want a 10 by 16 extension on my house, and you don't say nothing else, guess what? You just gave that contractor a blank check. He's going to give you the cheap boards, the cheap flooring, the cheap siding, the cheap windows. So that's why if you hire someone to do your specifications for you, then he knows what he's bidding on. He's got to put 2x6 walls. He's got to put this type of flooring, this type of siding, That's why you got to be. And then when you hire a contractor, check for insurance, liability, especially workers' comp. you're getting your roof done. If a worker falls off your roof, you're not going to be held responsible. So again, making sure, again, it's your responsibility to check on the contractor. So ask for references and call you their references to making sure. Actually, Nipissing is and Sturgeon Falls is a small community. So I'm sure everybody knows who the good contractors are and the bad contractors. So what are we looking at in terms of costs? So look at, now on a typical 1,000 square foot house, if you're looking at kitchen cabinets anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000, so that's about $250 to $600 per linear feet. Now, I did my own kitchen during COVID. It was $25,000, and that was without the marble or the expensive countertop. I went with the low-end countertop just to save money, but it was still $25,000. So I went to a custom dealer. So again, that was my decision. My wife wanted these nice cupboards. It could go as low as 20 or less. So that's supply and installed. New roof, asphalt. You're looking at anywhere from 10 to 15,000. For a steel roof, anywhere from 12,500 to 20,000. So that's material and installed. And then if you're going to renovate the bathroom fixtures, you're looking, new toilet, new bathtub. And if you're going with a tile wall, tile shower, tile flooring, you're going to be paying more. So that's why it could get as high as 25,000 or more, depending on what kind of bathroom you're getting. And then new flooring, anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000. Why would it cost 20,000? Well, hardwood floors are not cheap. They're the most expensive flooring that you're going to get, but they're also the most durable. And then we're looking at painting your house anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000. So you're looking at $2 to $3 a square foot. Again, new deck, pressure treated, anywhere from $20 to $30 a square foot. So anywhere from $2,000 to $4,000, $5,000, depending on what you want on your deck. Again, new furnace, you're talking about $12,000 installed with all the piping. New vinyl siding, again, if you go with the cheap stuff, you're talking $8,000. You go with the hardy board, higher end siding, you're looking at about $16,000. Again, keep in mind that's just about 1,000 square foot house. And then a central AC, air conditioning, you're talking anywhere from $3,000 to $4,500. And if you want a man cave, a detached, two-bay garage with a slab. So usually it's a 10-inch slab reinforced with concrete rebar. You're looking from anywhere for $30,000, which would be just the shell, like the slab and the shell, or up to 60 if you're going to get electricity in there and everything and insulated. You go as high as 60,000. So when I did my slab on my garage before COVID, it was probably 3 years before, my slab on a two-bay garage was 11,000. I bet you today that same slab is probably 16 to 17,000 just on the slab. And then my structure, I put the shell cost me 21,000. So my garage was 31. That's without insulation. That's without electricity. It was just the shell, the windows, and the garage doors. So I would add, today I would probably say that would cost 40 today because of inflation. So again, these are some of the renovations that you can do. And like I said, if you're on reserve, you're doing this out of your pocket, you're not obligated to call housing. But you should get the housing. Housing has an inspector through the tribal council who has a BCI number, which means he knows the building code of Ontario. So he can come and inspect your work and making sure that the contractor is keeping honest, okay? So again, renovating a home, that's a great idea. Now we're gonna talk about investments, Now, one of the things you should be careful of is you gotta be careful of the tax implications of your investing. So if you work off reserve and earn taxable income, you should max out your RSP contribution. You can find that on your most recent CRA notice of assessment. So, after you file your tax return, you get a notice of assessment. In that notice of assessment, it'll say what's your maximum RSP. But the major thing that you should contribute to is the tax-free savings account. It used to be $6,500 a year you could put in there. I believe it's $7,000. Now, if you've never contributed to a tax-free savings account, you can go retroactive to $95,000. So you could put $95,000 in one lump sum payment. Now, the great thing about the tax-free savings account is any money you make in a tax-free savings account, it's tax-free. Any money you pull out, it's tax-free. Now, what's confusing, and a lot of people don't understand it, it says savings account. People think it's just a bank savings account. It's not. You could buy mutual funds, you could buy stocks, you could buy bonds, GICs in that, and you can make a lot of money. And that's why it's a great investment vehicle, okay? And then once you're maxed out both, then you can get the non-registered account. Non-registered account means an investment account that's not registered. That means you're going to be subject to income tax, okay, because you've maxed out the RSP. You could look at your spousal RSP if you have a spouse, and maxing that out, or even your spouse's tax-free savings account. You could put money in there to max it out. So again, there was an interesting article in the Globe and Mail this weekend. It said that the contribution to RSPs are going down. You know why? More people are contributing to the tax-free savings account than to the RSP, because they can pull that money out without any tax penalty. And let's say you put $95,000 and 2 years from now you need 10,000 as an emergency. You could pull 10,000 out and then you could put it back in later on. On a RSP, if you pull out money, you're taxed at 30%. So that's why a lot of people are favoring the tax-free. Now, if you work on reserve and you're in for tax-free income, do not buy an RSP. Why? Because you're already at the lowest tax rate right there, 0. There's no lower tax rate than 0. So RSP was no benefit. As a matter of fact, if you contribute to an RSP when you're making tax-free income, it's going to trigger a tax. It's going to trigger a tax on you. So when you contribute to an RSP, you pull it out, you're going to be taxed at 30%. So that's why you got to be careful. Don't buy an RSP if you work on reserve and it's tax-free. Okay. So a lot of people, again, open up a tax-free savings account. And if you've never contributed, put 95,000. You can go back retroactive. This year, the contribution, I believe, is 7,000. So you can put, so every year you could put 65 or 7,000. That's the max. And every year you let it grow. So again, you could buy investments with this. And then open a non-registered account. And what that is just a regular investment account at your bank. And you can buy stocks and bonds and GICs. But the earnings there, they're going to be taxable, unfortunately. Okay, so really for people on reserve, the only tax-free vehicle available to you for investments is this tax-free savings account. You can go to your bank. Most banks have this. They'll open it for you. And then these are some of the investments. So a guaranteed investment certificate, it's a secure investment that guarantees 100% of your principal and the interest for a fixed period of time. So you can get a 6-month GIC, 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year. Now, you got to lock it in though. It's a locked-in investment. So if you're not sure what you want to do, I tell people just buy a 6-month GIC. That way, the money, you can pull out the money in 6 months. The other thing too is the GIC, if you leave it in there, you're going to, on a 1 year right now, it's over 5%. If you buy a 1 year GIC and you put 95,000, you're going to earn $5,000 in 1 year. That's a good return for today. So again, but you got to lock it in for a year. So you got to be careful. Now, what I do is I stagger my investments. So I'll put some of my GICs at 1 year. I'll buy 2 years, 3 years. So they're staggered. So there's always money maturing. And you just roll them over. So you can get that. There's also a mutual fund. Again, you can buy a portfolio. It's really you're buying shares of a portfolio. So what this does, it spreads the risk out among different companies. So they'll have bonds, stocks in there. So it spreads the risk. Now, the rate of return is based on your risk tolerance. So when you go see an investment advisor, they're going to ask you for your risk tolerance, which means can you stomach a loss? And now, as you get older too, you don't want to be in the stock market. If you're 67, 80, you don't want to be. You want to be in bonds, GICs. If you're 25 years old, you should go high risk. The theory is, you go high risk, the payoff is better. But if you lose money, you're 25. You got time to make it up. But if you're at the end of your working life, you don't have time to make it up. Again, contact your financial advisor at your bank. They can help you. And then if you go to the bank, make sure you take your notice of assessment with you. When you file your tax return, you get that notice of assessment. In there, it'll have your RSP if you're taxable. And then they also have your the maximum you can contribute to the tax-free savings account. Okay, so don't get confused by tax-free savings, how think it's just a save. No, you could buy bonds, you could buy GICs, you can buy mutual funds in there. So it's a good thing. It's actually one of the most popular investment tools right now. I think it was a great idea that the government did this because for people on reserve, we've never had a tax-free investment portfolio other than our pension. But now this gives us that opportunity to earn tax-free income. And then people off reserve earning this tax-free income as well. Any questions? So tax-free savings account, they're pretty good. They're very good. Again, car loans. This is probably by far the biggest financial mistake a lot of people make. First of all, I've been telling people, you know what? Today's car loans, the average car loan today is $1,000 a month payment. Before COVID, the average car loan was $700 a month. That's a staggering increase. That's almost 50% increase since the last 3 years. So you know what? I've been telling people, if you need a car, you should buy a used car. You can get used car with low mileage and the balance at the factory, and you're going to pay half the price of a new car. A new car, you lose 50% of the value of the car in the first 2 years you own it. Are you done paying 50% of the loan in 2 years? No, you already put a dent in it. So I always, you know what I do when I buy a car? I always buy the demo. The demos, they got 8,000 or 7,000 clicks. But you know what? It's discounted sometimes $10,000 or $12,000 on a demo model. So you can check with that as well. The other thing, when's the best time to buy a car? What time of the year is a good time? Actually, November, December, and January. Why? What's happening at that time of the year? No, snow. Not in Florida. No, the new inventory is coming in. So at November, December, and January, they're trying to get rid of 2024 models because 2025 models are coming in. So this is your great opportunity because that's when they're going to have these sales. The other thing too is you may not get your choice of cars at that time of the year, but you're not going to be paying a premium price if you're getting a new car. Now, if you're going to trade in your car, people do not understand negative equity. I don't know what gets them, but here's an example. This is an actual example. Okay, this fella, he bought a Jeep Cherokee. So he only had it less than 2 years. Look what he owed on that. When he went to the dealer, he owed $54,000. And you know what the dealer said? We'll give you 30. What should you have done? You should walk away. Look at the loss, $24,000 negative equity. You know what he did? He didn't walk. He took the loss of $24,000. Then he bought a $25,000 car. And then they added his negative equity from the previous car. And look at his car payment. His financing is $49,000 for a $25,000 car. He got killed at the trade-in. And I told him, oh my God, this is not the worst case I've seen. I've seen a worse one than this. So you know how they get you? They tell you it's only $30 a week every 2 weeks more, but they don't tell you it's for 8 years. So that's for 86 months. So by the time he's done paying it off, it's going to be like $70,000, $75,000 for a $25,000 car. Then he asked me, what should I do? Then I told him, the only advice I can give you is you're going to have to ride this car loan out for days. You can't trade it in. If you trade it in, you're just going to make it worse. So, and he was on a fixed income. So he got rolled by the car dealer. I see a lot of this happening. So you got to be careful when you trade in your car. Find out how much you owe on your car. And if they offer less than what you owe, walk away. Don't take it. So rule of thumb, I tell people, wait till you're 80% paid off before you think about trading in a car. Because, you have equity built up into the car. What's that? Or paid off. Yes, that's even better. Like cars last too long today. Today you can go up to 86 months on a car loan. I'm old enough to remember the longest you could finance a car was 48 months. You remember that? I remember 4 years. And the other thing I remember, you needed to put a down payment down or a trade-in. You could not walk off that lot without putting something. Now you don't even have to put a dime down. As a matter of fact, they say cash back, or they tell you don't pay for 3 months. The other thing that the myth that gets you is 0% financing. That's not true. I'll give you an example. I bought a tractor during COVID. They said 0% financing, okay? Here's how the deal worked. It was 44,000, 0% financing. But if I paid cash, it's 40. So what's the $4,000 for? Well, it's administration charge. It's interest. So, and then they say it's interest free on the 44. Well, yeah, because you charged me that admin fee for 4,000. That's the interest. So that's how they get you on the 0% financing. They add an admin fee. They don't call it interest. So that's how that 0% works. they build it into your price that you don't. So be careful when you talk to those slick car salesmen, because they'll catch you and you know how they reel you in. They'll say it's only $30 more every 2 weeks, or, you know, and that doesn't sound like lots, but then it's for 86 months. So it's a huge commitment. So the worst payment I seen was $1,900 for a car. This girl in Val d'Or, she traded in her car, I believe it was 2 or 3 times in 5 years. And she came and see me, and there was nothing I could do. I told her, you got to write out that $1,900 car payment for 8 years. Because if you trade it in, you're just going to make, you know what, that $1,900, that's equivalent to a $400,000 mortgage. So, you know, these car salesmen, they take advantage of people. And that's why we're hoping when you go get your Robinson Huron money, be careful when you go buy a car. And like I said, used car is just as good as a new car. You might end up with a lemon, but you also might buy a new car that's a lemon. The only advice I'll give you on new, used cars is make sure you get the warranty. You usually get the balance of the factory. Then you can ask for an extended warranty. The other thing I advise is buy from a dealer, like a Chevy or Ford dealer. You know why? I don't trust those side row show guys, you know, Scott's Auto Sales or Jim's. You don't know if they're going to be there tomorrow, right? It's a fly-by-night business. I would rather go to a dealer because they'll put their reputation on the line for that car, right? So again, that's why I always say go to a dealer. They'll make sure there's a, and you can get a used car. My son got one with 16,000 kilometers for $16,000. And then he held it for 5 years and he traded it in. He got 8,000 on a trade-in. Yeah, so that's outstanding. So again, I told him get a used car. You'll do. He did very well on that used car. And then he traded in his used car, for another used car. So again, he hasn't bought a new car. It's just, you know, I've been training my kids not to buy new cars. Just get used cars. You can get used cars for under 20 cars with less than 20,000 clicks, and they're just as good as brand new. Okay, we're going to talk about a budget. You know, if you don't know how to save, if you find money is tight. Now, how many people save money? Do you guys save money? You know how to save money? It's very simple. Sorry. You know what you got to do? You got to treat savings as a bill. For example, you know how you pay your hydro bill, your car insurance, your car payment? Well, savings should be a bill. That's how you treat it. So here's how we used to budget in the old days. Here's my paycheck, here's my bills, whatever I left, I'll save. But we never saved. We blew that money. So what you got to do is you say, this is my paycheck, these are my bills, and in my bills is my savings. Then whatever I left, we can blow. So again, that's how you save. Now, I've been self-employed for 15 years. I pay myself first. That's the first thing off my paycheck. I have no employer behind me putting aside a pension. I have to do that myself. So I've been disciplined to put money aside for the last 15 years because I have no employer putting a pension. I have to put my own. So that's why I treat savings as a bill. And my rule of thumb is pay yourself first before you pay GMAC or Ford. That should be the first contribution you make at the beginning of your first paycheck, savings, and then go pay Visa, MasterCard, your card. Oh, I'm paying Nipissing first too. Sorry, put that good word in for Nipissing here. I can pay Nipissing. And then if you want to make, again, if you budget, if you get paid bi-weekly, you're going to notice there's something that happens twice a year. If you're paid bi-weekly, twice a year, you're paid 3 times in 1 month. So that's almost like an extra paycheck. Again, you can see where you're going. Setting goals, again, do you need to pay off some debt, buy a home? Now, with this Robinson Huron money, like I said, for young people, this is a great opportunity for young families to get into home ownership with the down payment. A lot of families right now are struggling just to pay rent because I deal with a lot of young families on their home ownership, and they can't afford it because they're paying $2,100 or $2,600 for rent. They have no time to save money. Well, this Robinson Huron money that they're getting, this is a great opportunity for them to put a sizable down payment down for a mortgage. So again, this is a great time to get into home ownership. Again, are you seasonal worker? Does your income change? Again, do you have money left over after each paycheck? So a lot of people live paycheck to paycheck, and more people live 4 days before the next paycheck. You know what they're living on? They're using their credit cards, lines of credit, or worse, payday loans. Once you get on a payday loan, you're stuck. It's a vicious cycle. So you paid them $500. 2 days later, you're short $500. You're back there borrowing that $500 all over again, and it's a vicious cycle. So you got to get a. So again, this Robinson Huron money, it allows a lot of people with bad credit to repair their credit. pay off the collections. If you have a payday loan, get out of it. And then get a credit card. Like I said, get a secured credit card and start rebuilding your credit. So this Robinson Huron money is a great opportunity for people, for young people getting home ownership, for elderly or low-income homeowners to fix their home, for people to restore their credit. So this is a great opportunity to use your Robinson Huron money. Again, when you budget, you always look at money after deductions. Again, if you have a spouse, you would look at their income after. And then child tax credit. If you get a child tax credit, hi Linda, if you have a child tax credit, count that in. And then any other income, like your Trillium, whatever. When you do bills, now, there's a popular show on TV. I like watching it. I haven't seen it on, I don't have satellite TV anymore, so I haven't seen it since March of 2020. I stopped watching satellite TV because I started watching Netflix and all that like everyone else. But there's a show called Till Death Do Us Part. It's a popular show. This lady, she works with people, couples in financial trouble. And, you know, this is what she does. She teaches them to know the difference between needs and wants. So on every episode, what she does, she works with families and who are in financial trouble. Now, it doesn't matter how educated you are, how well income you are. If you don't know the difference between needs and wants, you're going to be in financial trouble. So every episode, before she gives the couple shit, you know what she does? She walks through their house and she looks at the food they're buying. She looks at their appliances. She looks at their clothes. She looks at the cars. She looks at their toys. You know what she's trying to figure out? Do these people know the difference between needs and wants? Needs are stuff you cannot live without. So there's a Maslow's hierarchy of needs that talks about human needs. It's a triangle. What are the three things that a human needs to survive? A human being. Food, right? Shelter, heat and hydro. Well, that's how you should budget. Shelter first, right? Food, groceries, heat and hydro. So again, that's how you budget. You look at your need. Those are needs. Wants, going to North Bay Casino. Right, that's a want, right? Going to the movies. You know, with the casino in town, what used to happen, people used to go to Rama every 6 months and blow their brains out. But so it was once, but now with a casino next door, they're doing this every week. So if you're going there every week, you're going to get into financial trouble. I mean, you're always going to say, I'm going to win, but you know, that's going to be a long time. Again, so know the difference between needs. So I kind of broke it down. What are needs like rent, property taxes, if you live off reserve, utilities, car insurance, childcare, groceries. These are typical needs. Now, I always talk about the insurance. If you get a loan like a mortgage or a car loan, you should buy the life insurance. I wouldn't buy the disability. If you're working full-time, you're covered by your group insurance and workers' comp. So disability insurance is very expensive to buy on a loan. I would just go with the life insurance on a mortgage or any large loan that you get. So these are typical needs. Look at this. These are wants: vacation, restaurants, hair care, gifts, and internet cable. What about cell phone? How many people still have a landline? You have a landline? You guys have, oh my God. You guys have a landline? Wow. You know, most people don't have a landline anymore. They have cell phone. You know what I always tell people, you know what I was using my landline for? To find my cell phone, you know, and I was paying. Now I get my wife to call my cell phone with her cell phone. So again, cell phones are kind of crossing that line between needs and wants, because this is actually my business number and everything. It's my personal phone. And then transportation, gas. So these are stuff, if you had to, you can cut, right? You can live without satellite. You can live without cable. Internet. If you have a teenager, you're going to cut internet, you better sleep with one eye open, because that kid's going to be after you. Or steal your neighbor's internet. Go find out what their password is. You know what's funny? In Sudbury, when the internet first came out, you know, the wireless, I bought into that. And some college students moved next door. And then I noticed my internet was really slow. Like, what the heck's going on? Then my friend, who's an IT person, he came over and he said, there's no security on your wireless. And I didn't understand what he's talking about. Security? What's security? He said, anybody driving by can go onto your network and use your internet. He said, those college kids are using your internet. That's why it's so slow. So you know what he said? He said, you can name your network. You know what I named my network? Get your own internet. So if you go to my house in Sudbury, you drive near there and you're looking for internet, you'll see a network called Get Your Own Internet. That's my cell. That's my network. Okay? again, what's the outcome? So on the left, if your income is greater than your expenses, then you're doing okay. What about the couple on the left? You know, your income is 2,400 and you make 3,000. How is it possible to spend more than you make? How is that possible? No, where do they get the money? Yeah, you're using what? Lines of credit, credit cards, or worse, payday loans. Yeah, that's how. So on that show, if you start watching that show till death do us part, you're going to see, you know, in 5 years, if you keep this up, you're going to be $250,000 in debt. In fact, she kind of exaggerates. Visa's going to cut you off long before that. You don't have to worry. But the point here is, are these guys in trouble? Are they in trouble? What do you think? They are in trouble. Can they do something? Yeah. So if you watch that show, there's the needs, 2,100. Can I cut 600 there? That's your groceries, that's your rent. You can't cut 600. But look at their wants. They're spending 900 on wants. You know what? On that show, if you watch, that's where she takes the axe. She gets them to cut 600 on the wants. And once they get the 600 out of the wants, they balance their budget. And you know what? I was working with a young family, and they said, Scott, we can't afford groceries. So I went through their bank accounts and we started doing a budget to see where their money. Guess what? You know how much he was paying on cell phone? And this is the bad thing about young families that are low income. These are become status symbols with the kids. And now low income people are buying their kids cell phones with iPhones. Her cell phone bill was $550 because she had her kids on there. And there's your grocery money right there. That's why you can afford the grocery. So on that show, that's where you're going to have to cut. So I told her, you got to do something about those cell phones. I told her, put her kids on pay-as-you-go, $25 a month, and teach them how to log on to McDonald's network or Tim Hortons or at the school to use that roaming instead of your cell phone. So you got to teach the kids. But it's today with the low-income families, getting them cell phones, it's a status symbol. So this is kind of, and the other thing too, with young people, 9 times out of 10, when I look at their credit report, this is what's killing this is what's why they have bad credit, is cell phone. Used to be credit cards, now it's cell phone is kind of what's ruining people's credit. Not just young people, but a lot of older people too. If Roger says you owe 80, you pay 80. You don't put 40 down and leave a balance. You know what happens if you leave a balance? Your credit score goes down. So this affects your credit score quite a bit. People don't understand that. So you got to be careful with your cell phone. Again, you got to be careful. Again, if your income is greater than your expenses, you can save for vacation, down payment, rainy day fund. What happens if your income expenses are greater? Again, you know, cut out your wants. Eat out once a month at the restaurant. Cut your internet or cable. You guys know what staycation is? Remember that was coined during the economic meltdown. Instead of on your vacation going to Toronto or Sturgeon Falls, you stay home and just sit in your backyard and do, you know, just hang around house. That's a staycation, because how much does that cost you? $0. Yeah, so that's what. The other one is switch to a cheaper cell phone. So a lot of communities I go to, sometimes that's not an option because they're remote communities. But here you can get Rogers, you can get pretty much any network. Right? So you can look at different cheaper cell phones, carpool, stock up on growth. Buy a smaller car that's easier on gas, especially with today's gas prices. You know, I have a friend in BC because I work quite a bit in BC, and he used to tell me, quit buying gas trucks because you're wasting your money. He told me, buy diesel, they'll go 1,000,000 miles. The body will go before the motor. So what do? I go buy a diesel motor truck in December of 2020. You know what? Diesel prices after that hit a record high. It was so much, I was like, oh my God. It's like a couple of $100 to fill up my truck on diesel. So again, you know, that's one of the things. The other one is don't lend money. Obviously, that's a big one. Again, what happens if your needs are greater? You know what? I run into this a lot. This is where you're in serious financial trouble. You know why? You can't afford groceries. You can't afford your mortgage. You can't afford your rent. This is a disaster. So what do? Again, rent a cheaper apartment if you're living off, watching utilities. Now, how many people have heard of debt consolidation loan? It's a good thing, but you got to go to a bank. You can't go to those finance companies that do high-risk lending like payday loans. You got to go to a bank. You have to have a good credit score. So you should do this before you're in financial trouble. So I did this about 3 or 4 times in my lifetime. I wasn't in financial trouble. I'm an accountant by trade, so I know I'm going to save on the interest I'm paying, but also the money going out the door. So for example, if I add up my bills now and they're $800 a month, as for example, but if I consolidate them under one bill, then my payment might be only $450. So I'm going to save $350 in cash, and they cut up your credit cards. What happens to your credit score on a debt consolidation loan? Does it go up or down or no change? What do you guys think? Debt consolidation loan. So on a debt consolidation, so when you apply for credit, you lose 5 points. So you're going to lose 5 points. What happens to your credit card when you do a debt consolidation loan? It goes to 0. And then if you keep it at 0, what happens to your credit score? It'll go up. So in the long run, your debt consolidation, actually your credit score will go up because your credit card balance is at 0. And if you keep your credit card balance at 0 for 3 or 4 months, guess what? Your credit score is going to shoot right up. Remember that first slide I told you? The biggest impact on your credit is always credit cards. Credit cards when you're young, best way to establish credit. One of the fastest ways to win credit is credit card. And the fastest way to rebuild credit is credit card. So that's why you're going to hear me a lot talk about credit cards. That if you manage your credit card wisely, it can give you a high credit score. I've met people with 800, 850 credit scores, and it's because they've kept their balance at 0. Now, if you're rebuilding credit though, and like I said earlier, if you get a secured credit card, you have to use it. People think, okay, I'll apply for a secured credit card. I won't use it. It'll improve my credit score. No, it won't. You actually have to use it. You have to, I tell them, go buy something, pay it off. You have to establish a credit payment history that they want to see. So you can't just sit on it. You got to rebuild your credit. Again, secured credit card. Okay, money management again, plan for future purchases. You know what? I'm guilty of impulse buying. You should see me. I tell people, you should put me on a leash when I go to Costco. You know, I told last night, I was supposed to go buy some bread and toilet paper. I come out with a 9,000 watt generator, which I've only used like maybe 3 or 4 times in 6 years since I bought it. So again, impulse. The other one, I'm guilty of poor judgment too. I went to a car dealer for an oil change. That's what I came out with, a new car. So I'm bad for, I'm guilty for impulse buying, but you know, I'm human too, right? So you gotta fight those impulses, especially when you get to your Robinson Huron money, you know. You got to really fight those impulses, and hopefully you don't squander your money. Again, know your financial situation, manage your credit wisely, save for emergencies. Again, tax-free savings account. I'm going to talk about that quite a bit. If you've never put it in there, put 95,000 in, and you can buy mutual funds, and you could pull the money out with no tax. There'll be no tax implication, and any money you pull out, you can put back in at a future date. Okay, so this is why a lot of people are using that tax-free savings account as an investment account. So again, buying mutual funds. And distinguish between needs and wants, downsides too small. Now downsides on reserve, unfortunately, that's not possible. So sometimes, you know, you have empty nesters that are in a 4 or 5 bedroom house. You know, that's too much house for an elder. In the city, you know what happens in the city? They sell their houses and they sometimes move to a condo or a smaller apartment because they can't manage, they can't take care of the lawn anymore, they can't handle the property taxes. Unreserved, that's not possible. So a lot of people just give it to their kids and they move to a smaller apartment, okay? Again, cut down on expenses, buy life insurance, bulk groceries, brown bag lunches. Again, understanding credit. Again, keep track of spending, put your needs before your wants. Keep your credit card in your wallet. I did this workshop before Christmas, eh? That's hard when you're at the mall, keeping your credit card in your wallet. How about the buy now, pay later? Who's famous for that? Don't pay for 36 months. You heard those commercials? Who does that? Leon's, the Brick, right? They all do that. Okay, let's pretend I buy $5,000 worth of furniture and I take them up on that 36 months, don't pay for 36 months, and I don't pay. What happens on the 37th month? Yes, so instead of owing 5, now you owe 8,000. So if you're going to take them up on that payday, you got to make sure you pay it off. The other thing I found out, and I found out because I read a lot of credit reports, they don't close those accounts when you pay them off. When I was reading someone's account, I seen Leon's 5,000 open. They said, I paid that off. I said, no, it's open. Does that affect your credit? Absolutely. So if you take one of these offers, make sure you go in there and get them to close that account. And you could tell, so like I said, if you pull your credit report on your banking app, go through your credit and it'll show all your accounts and it'll say close or open. If it's open, that means it's going to affect your credit. The other thing too, and this happens by accident, if you move and you don't tell your credit card company, you can end up in collections. You know how? This lady moved from Hamilton to Timmins, and I was working with her, and her American Express renewed. So you know what happens at renewal? They charge you that renewal fee, $140. So it went to her old address in Hamilton, so she didn't see it. So she didn't know she owed this money. Guess where it ended up? Collections. And I'll tell you how much points you'll lose. 90 points when something goes in collections. So once it hits collections, you're going to lose 90 points, and that'll take you from good credit to bad credit overnight. So I always hear young people, telling Bell Canada, go to hell, Bell Canada, put me in collections. I tell them, you better go buy a truck now because you're going to need a co-signer. Because also you won't be able to buy a house. If you have something in collections, you have to clear it out. When I worked at the RBC a long time ago, if someone owed money in collections, I would tell them, go pay Bell, show me a receipt for $2,000 that you paid, and we'll give you a loan. That's the whole point of a credit bureau. It stops other lenders from touching you because you owe them money. The only ones that are touching you are going to be payday loans or those easy financial. They don't have a problem. You know why? Because they're going to charge you 29%. That's why. They don't care. I've seen. What's that?
If you owe money, let's say it's 20 years now, is it still going to show up? Even after like 20 years?
Yes. The other thing too is collections. The rule of thumb is if it's under 6 years, you got to pay it. If it's over 6 years, you're okay. But that doesn't mean they'll stop chasing you down. I know companies that are still chasing down people from 10 years ago. You're not obligated to pay them after 6 years. Sorry, I just had a dry throat from the circuit. Again, pay off your high interest credit cards and do your debt consolidation loan. Now, the buy now, pay later, some of the car dealers are doing that, Don't pay for 3 months. I wouldn't take them up on that offer. Just start paying from day one. And like I said, there's no such thing as 0% financing. They bill an admin fee as a backup. Again, healthy credit habits. Again, pay your bills, hydro, phone, cable. College students, you know what? People coming back from college, they wouldn't pay their last cable bill. And a lot of the young people I work with, they're 22, 23, trying to buy a house. And it's a conjugal in collections from their last, when they were in college for 4 years. It's still haunting you. You got to pay those bills. Okay. Look at that second bullet. Get a credit card. So you know what? When I work with people with bad credit, they just get floored when I tell them your first step is get a credit card. You know what, Scott? That's what got me in trouble was a credit card. Well, that's what's going to get you out of trouble is a credit card. Remember that 30% rule? Do that first card trick. And if you do that, that's the fastest way to rebuild your credit. So get a credit card. Again, pay your credit bills on time. Limit yourself to 1 or 2. Using Visa, MasterCard. What's the problem with American Express? There's a problem with American Express. Does anybody know? American Express? Okay, so if you go to North Bay and you use your Visa at Walmart, let's say I buy $100 worth of stuff at Walmart on Visa, guess what? Walmart does not get $100 from Visa. They'll get 99 cents or 98 cents on the dollar. Visa keeps like 1%, 1.5% of the sale. Now, American Express is worse. They charge 2.5% or 2%. So if you're a little retailer, you know how much a little retailer makes? 5% on their profit. So a lot of them won't take American Express because that's half their profit they're going to be give to American Express. So that's why a lot of little business, they don't take American. A lot of people thought because they're American. I said, no, it's because the fee. Do you guys remember when Walmart and Visa had a big scrap? You guys remember that 2 or 3 years ago? Walmart threatened Visa to pull the Visa machines out of Walmart. That's what they were fighting over. And they started taking out Visa machines at Thunder Bay Walmarts. And guess what? It was settled the next day. Guess who won? Walmart, because 1% of $1 billion, billions, it's a lot of money. You think a little retailer can fight with Visa? Visa will just pull their machine. But Walmart won that battle. So if you're a big retailer, you can negotiate that. Again, don't do cash advances, don't bounce checks. What about cosign? When someone asks you to cosign, what does that say about their credit?
That's not.
No.
Is that they stop paying.
Yes. Sorry. So if they pay on time, they pay off the loan, does your credit score go up? How many people think your credit score goes up? If your cosigner pays it all off on time, doesn't miss a payment, pays it off. Does anything happen to your credit score? Nothing. They miss one payment, what happens? Your credit score goes down. It's your credit score. Yeah, your credit score goes down. So you're putting an anchor over your head and you're going overboard with them. So if you cosign for someone, you got to be careful. The other thing is, if you cosign for somebody, it's treated as your bill. So when you go for a bank loan, they do a credit check on you. They're going to list that as your debt obligation, not your cosigners. It's going to be on your debt. So it's actually going to reduce the amount you can borrow because they're going to charge $600 to you. So you got to be careful. Again, don't default on loans or pay bills after due date. Okay? Again, be a smart borrower. Again, good investment represents money like assets. Like I was talking about, buy a car, do a renovation, bad debt, cash advances, interest charge from the advance, borrowing to buy luxury items. Again, we can also talk about being a smart spender with your Robinson Huron money, keeping inside. And you'll notice I'm not talking about RVs here or side-by-sides or quads. I'm kind of discouraging people from that. I'm telling them, if you pay off your bills and you got no mortgage, you got no kids, you know what, men, you can buy those toys. But if you don't, you should be investing in this type of stuff. Again, credit report. Yeah, there's 2 credit report agencies in Canada, Equifax and TransUnion. If you go on your banking app, some of them use TransUnion, some of them use Equifax. If you pull your credit score from both bureaus, they won't be the same. They calculate risk differently, okay? So every time you apply for a loan, it's recorded. Some information stays on there for up to 6 years, like collections, 6 years, bankruptcy, 6 years. If you're in Quebec and you do bankruptcy, they make you suffer 1 more year, 7 years in Quebec, okay? Again, what's on there? Name, address, SIN number, employment history. What about social media? Can social media affect your credit? What do you guys think? Social media, Facebook, WhatsApp, any other social media. What do you think? Yes, it can. It's been happening before. Yeah. You know why? You know how old I am on Facebook? I'm 75. Don't put your birthday on there. Don't answer surveys. Don't put that face recognition. Don't put too much first. There was an article, a girl in Southern Ontario, her identity was stolen 3 times on social media. They wouldn't open accounts in her name, but borrowed money in her name. And it's because she put too much stuff of her accounts and all of her personal information on social media. Don't answer questions on there. What's your favorite hockey team, Blair? Toronto Maple Leafs? What's your favorite color, Cindy? Okay. What's your mother's maiden name? Don't tell me. Guess what? Your mother's maiden name is a security question. So you're blindly giving this information. Same thing on your cell phone. How many people are getting texts now? Scotiabank, RBC. Yeah, that's a scam. My Google email used to be good at screening out that. I'm getting these weird emails. If you see ZZ on an email, delete it. Don't open it because it'll take your personal information. So you got to be careful. Also, I've been to a lot of fraud conferences. So what you got to do too is, if you're at a hotel, don't use their Wi-Fi. Why? What's the problem with it? It's an open public Wi-Fi. They can steal your information on there. One of my colleagues, he was in Toronto doing his banking on a hotel Wi-Fi. Guess what? Someone hacked his account on that Wi-Fi and cleaned his bank account out. So you know what I use? I use my phone as a router at the hotel, and I use this as my router. I don't use the hotel Wi-Fi because they can steal your identity on there. The other tip is get these for your credit cards. They don't cost a lot of money. These are shields. Your debit, credit cards, your passports. There are people walking around with devices in their pocket. They come close to you. They could scan your credit card information. This wallet too is the same thing. It shields it. The other one, they're stealing cars in Toronto like crazy. They're stealing the fog. So they have devices. They walk around your house and they detect these signals off your car keys and they start your car and it's gone. So the best way to protect your car is actually you can go to Canadian Tire and buy a metal box and you put your keys in the metal box and that blocks the signal. If you're traveling like me, you can go to Canadian Tire and you can buy a pouch and it blocks, and you put your keys at the hotel room in the pouch and it blocks the signal on your car keys. So if there's people walking around the hotel getting your signals, it's blocking. You know what it is? It's just essentially foil. That's what it is. It blocks the signal on your keys. And the other one I tell people, you know what you should do is actually pull the battery out of your car when you go to the hotel. That's a last resort. But if you block the signal, you can get away. The other thing, in Vancouver, my credit card was stolen twice, my ID. You know where? At a gas pump. So what thieves do is they put fake things on the ATM and they mount it with hot glue. So when you go to a gas pump and you do that auto pay, grab that card thing and pull it. Because if it moves, that means it's a skimmer that's been hot glued. Same thing, Sudbury Theatre. Did you guys hear what happened in Sudbury a few years ago? You know where you buy your own tickets, a self-serve kiosk? Somebody put a skimmer on one of those boxes, and you get your ticket, but that skimmer, it just you got your credit card information and your PIN number, and then they come back later and they take that machine that's over, and then they take off. So when you go to a bank machine too, make sure you grab the front of it and give it a good pull because they hot glue. People behind me think this guy is crazy. He's wrecking the machine. But when you go to a gas pump, do that on that with your card, making sure it's not hot glued in. Those are skimmers. The other scam is in Toronto with the cabbies. You know, when you pay for a Visa, they'll give you a machine. You're going to swipe it, put your PIN number. Oh, this machine's broken. Then he's going to give you another machine. He just skimmed your stuff on that machine. So they're skimming your credit card. So again, these are kind of steps you can do. The other thing too, you know what I do is I buy a credit monitoring service for $13 a month with Equifax, and I get alerted when someone's doing a credit check on me. That way I know if someone stole my identity, I'm going to get advised right away. But if I know I wouldn't apply for a credit card or I wouldn't apply for a car loan, I'll get an alert that night. But then I know that's me. I wouldn't apply for a car. And I can go on my Equifax and I'll see who did a credit check on me. So that's a good, it's only $13 a month. If you don't hear from them, that's a good thing. If you hear from them and you didn't apply for credit, that's a bad thing. That means your identity was stolen somewhere, okay? So social media does affect, SIN number. Is that a random number? How many people think that's a random number, your social insurance number? Is that a random number? It's not a random number. You know what it's linked to? Your birthday. Remember I told you I'm 75 on Facebook. Don't put your birthday on Facebook because your birthday is linked to your SIN number. If they know other information, they could work backwards and start figuring out what your SIN number is. So you got to be careful on your birthday, okay? So it's okay being 75. I look good for 75. I can still bike and mount tire trucks and everything. Again, so credit score, again, payment history, balances relative to credit limits, credit inquiry. So every time you apply for credit, it's 5 points. Now, how many people own a mortgage off reserve? If you own a mortgage, you know what a lot of people do when every 5 years, you got to renew a mortgage. So what a lot of people do is they hire a mortgage broker. This is where you got to be careful. So what a mortgage broker does, he takes you and shops you around to 5 different banks or different lenders. So guess what? That's 5 hits right there. They're going to do 5 credit score checks on you. That's 25 points. A lot of people will do that because they want to get a competitive interest rate. So you got to be careful when you do that because that does look at it. Another option, when I was in Quebec, I was working with some people in Val d'Or. You know this one girl, you know how she bought a car, her strategy? You know how most cities, all the car dealers are on one street, like Sudbury to Kingsway? Same thing in Val d'Or. So you know what her strategy was? She said, Scott, I went to every dealer and applied for credit without looking at a car. And she said, whoever gave me credit first, that's where I was going to buy the car. So when I looked at her credit report, she lost 30 points in one day. That looks really terrible. So that's a big hit. Okay, so again, 90 points if something goes in collection. Guess who put me in collections for $14 and I lost 90 points? You guys remember Blockbuster Video? Yeah, restocking fee. Now they're bankrupt, thank God. Yeah, remember they said no late fees, but they renamed it restocking fee. So $14, I went into collections. So you gotta be careful. Again, how's your score calculated? 35% on payment history, amounts owed, types of credit. So there's two types of credit: revolving, credit cards, lines of credit, and then installment, car payments, loan payments, mortgages, new credit, and length of credit history. So I have a credit card from 1994. That's the credit card I like to use the most because it'll add to my credit history, okay? Again, so here's some typical scores in Canada. Poor credit, 300 to 569. Fair. Now, really, from a banking perspective, any score under 600 is bad. If you want a mortgage through Nipissing, if you're a band member, we don't send anybody to the bank unless they have a credit score of 680, minimum 680 credit score, okay? Prime credit is anybody over 720. What does that mean? That means you're gonna get the premium credit cards, the best with the most points, the most rewards. You're gonna get the lowest interest rate products. If you're below 720, you don't get those kind of offers. The other thing too, guess who does credit checks on you? Your existing lenders. Who let them? Oh, you did. You know when you signed that 50-page loan document? In there, it said we're gonna do period. Guess what? It's called a soft inquiry. That means they'll do a credit check on you, but it won't count as a hard hit. So when you look at your credit report, you can see that who's doing, you gotta make sure it's your existing. You know what happens is you get these offers from your Visa. You want to increase your credit limit, your line of credit. Your bank will do that too. Why are they doing that? Because they like you? No, they like your credit score. If your credit score is going up or it's above 720, you're gonna get all those offers. If your credit score is going down, you're not gonna get those offers. You may even get them to say, return that credit card. So again, that's when people tell me they're getting these offers, without me looking at their credit score, I know they got good credit because you're getting these offers from your lenders, your Visa and all that, okay? So I've seen credit, the closest to 900 I've seen is 840. I've never seen a 900. I don't know if that's even possible. So 840 is the highest I've ever seen. I haven't seen anything higher than that. 900, I don't think that's even possible. That'd be like someone who's rich and just pays everything cash. But the other thing I hate, and a lot of people, I hate to tell people, what do you need to generate a credit score? What do you need to generate a credit score? You need to be in debt. I hate to break the news to you. Unfortunately, to generate a credit score, you need to have some form of debt, and actually credit card is a good option than your cell phone bill. I've worked with people my age that have never applied for credit, and they're trying to buy a house, and they're just totally shocked that I tell them you're not eligible. Why not? I pay cash. I'm a good risk. No, you're not. You know why? If I lend you money, I don't know if you're going to pay me back because you have no history. You got to establish that history. So these people, that's what they were doing. And they were telling their kids, pay cash, pay cash. So their kids won't be eligible for a mortgage either because they have no credit history. So now she started getting, a year later, she finally got a house. I got her to get a credit card and a small loan. And then she rebuilt her credit, and she got her kids to do credit cards too. So now her kids are looking at home ownership. So imagine all your life not, how do you pay cash for everything? That's just unimaginable. So she would save up money to buy a car, so it was saving money. Okay, repairing, how do you repair bad screw? Again, too much. How do you get turned down? Well, too much credit, pay down some debt, bad credit history, low score, no job, bankruptcy, 6 years, no job, really no income. Okay, again, repairing, pay your bills on time, get a credit card. Again, you're going to hear me saying that routinely, get a credit card, add an installment loan if you can, pay down your credit cards, get your balances below 30%. Remember that first trick I showed you? Get your credit limits down to your balances to under 30% of your credit limit for 3 or 4 months, or even 10% of your credit limit for 3 or 4 months, your credit score is going to shoot right up. That's the fastest way to get your credit. There's no other faster way than this credit card trick, okay? Again, use your credit card lightly. Your credit score pays a lot of attention to the amount you're using versus your credit limit. Again, that first one, if I'm between 80 and 100% of my credit limit on my credit card, I'm high risk, okay? Again, check your limits. You know, it's funny, in this day and age, when I go to a Walmart or somewhere, and I see someone get declined on their credit card, it's shocking. You know why? I could check on my phone in 2 minutes how much I have credit limit on my Visa. If it says I have only 700, I'm not gonna go spend 1,200, right? You're gonna get declined. So watch your limits. Again, dust off an old credit card. Like I said, I use a credit card from 1994. And don't apply for too many credit cards. And unfortunately, you gotta pay off collections. If it's within 6 years and you wanna buy a house, you gotta pay collections. If it's over 6 years, don't worry about it. You're not obligated. That doesn't mean they won't stop chasing you. I know some credit guys have been chased even 10 years after they've defaulted. Okay, mortgages. We're going to talk about mortgages because this is a great opportunity for young people, especially young families, to get into home ownership. And I'm going to show you what the banker looks at when we look at a mortgage application. There's two ratios we look at. One is called GDS, gross debt servicing. That's a multiple. Well, what it does is it measures housing affordability. So in Canada and the United States, when you get a mortgage, the most you can borrow is based on your income. So when a banker looks at you for a mortgage, we only could use 32% of your gross monthly income for a mortgage. You cannot go higher than that. But the most important ratio is this one. It's called the TDS ratio. It's called total debt servicing. It's where you max out your credit. Okay, so the rule of thumb is all your credit, your car payments, including your mortgage, cannot exceed 40%. Once you hit 40%, guess what? You've maxed out your credit. The only people that are going to touch you, guess who? Payday loans, Easy Financial. They don't care what this ratio is. If it's 75%, they'll still lend to you because you know why? They're going to charge you 29%. So when a banker looks at you, we only look at 40% of your gross monthly income for debt obligations. What's the other 60% for? Well, that's for your groceries, your car insurance, your gas, entertainment, kids' clothing, babysitter. That's life costs. So we only look at 40% of your income, okay? And then loans are approved on the strength of your application, so good credit, income sufficient to support a mortgage. Good job, tenure. So when I say 2 years, I mean recent college graduates. You have to wait 2 years before you can apply for a mortgage. And your current debt load's not too high. So in your package, I have an example. You could add up your debts here. And then there's the first affordability. I'm going to show you how to fill these out. It's really simple. There's the first affordability rule. There's the second affordability rule. Okay, let's do a case study here, an example. So we have a married couple who work and rent an apartment. Now, as soon as I see rent, guess what? That's not a debt obligation. Why? Because they don't own it. So when I list their debts, rent is not in there because they don't own that place. They're paying rent, so it's not a debt obligation. So we don't count the rent. So his income is 45, her income is 34. They have a Visa credit limit for 10,000. The balance is 34.50. They have American Express for 25. The balance is 11.20. They have a loan with TD Bank for 25. The payment is 425. They have a Leon's credit card for 3,000. The balance is 2,900. They have Ford credit for 30,000. They pay 450. GM for 20,000. The payment is 300. What do you guys think? Too indebted? Can these guys afford a mortgage? Too much debt? What do you guys think? Well, let's add up their debt. Okay, the personal loan, 425. That's that TD Bank thing here, 425. And then there's the car payment, 750. That's this 450 here and this 300. And no student loans. Look at the Visa. Now, guess what? Even though I said credit cards are your friend, they can also affect your credit. You know why? So when you go apply for a mortgage with the bank with your credit card, you see my credit limit is 10,000. I owe 3,400. Guess what happens? The bank is going to treat you as maxed out on a credit card, even if you owe zero. Why? Why would the bank do that? So when you go apply for a mortgage, you have a $10,000 Visa, you owe nothing. Guess what? We're going to max you out on that. You know why? What can you do with that credit card 5 minutes after you leave the bank? Yeah, you have access to it. So this $10,000 credit card, if you max that out, it's $300. Same thing with the American Express. If you max it out, it's $75. Leon's, $3,090. Look at, there's my debt obligation, $1,600. Notice what's not on there. Rent, cell phone, car insurance, gas, childcare, it's not in there. House insurance, that's not in there. This is only money I borrow that we count. So the rent's not in here, okay? So 1,600. So at the bottom here, look at 45,000 divided by 12. He makes 3,700 a month. 24,000 divided by 12, 2,800. So their combined monthly income is 6,500. So I take 32% of that. That's 2,100. So if I were to give them a mortgage, the most they can afford is 2,100 a month. And today that works out to about a $350,000 mortgage. That's the most they can afford. But I don't know if they can afford that. You know why? Because they have other debt. So now I do the second affordability. So they max out their credit at 65. Look at that. They max out their credit at 2,600 a month. That's that. Remember I said we only look at 40% of your gross monthly income? So they max out their credit at 40%, and their total debt obligations, look at that. They have 993 available for a mortgage, which really, it's about $180,000. Not much, eh? That's what they would qualify. You know why they can't qualify for more? It's because all these debts they have. So remember, guess what? If these guys co-sign for somebody, let's say they co-sign for 800, so that 6,400 would now be 2,400. They would have nothing available for a mortgage, because if you co-sign for somebody, it's counted as your debt. So you got to be careful. So you know what I'm working with young families? The husband always wants to buy a truck, boat. I tell them, buy your toys after, buy the house first, and then buy the toys later. Because if you buy the toys first, guess what? You might not be able to afford your house. If you got a $1,100 truck payment, you're probably not going to be able to afford that house now. So I always tell them, get your house first, then get the toys later, okay? So they can't afford that. What if I want a bigger house? Do I ask my boss for a raise, win the lottery? How about we restructure your debt? So look at my Visa. Let's pretend I cut my credit limit in half from 10,000 to 5. My American Express, I cut it down to 2,400. And Leon's, let's pay that out and cancel it. Okay, now, the only advice I'm going to give you on cutting your credit cards, you got to be careful how you do this, or you're going to ruin your credit. So what you got to do is get your balances way down first before you drop your credit limits. Why? Remember that 30% rule? Let's pretend that 10,000, you owe 8,000. Let's say you owe 4 and you cut it down to 5. You're going to be at 80% of your credit limits, and your credit score is going to take a dump. So you got to make sure you get your balance all the way down first, and then you bring down your credit limit. Otherwise, you're going to wreck your credit. So a girl in Nova Scotia, this is what she did. She had a $10,000 credit card and she owed 9. Guess what she did? She put 1,000 down. She owed 8. She called Visa, lower my limit to 9. She's at 90% still. Next month, she paid another 1,000 down to 7, cut her Visa down to 8. What is she at? 90%. Same thing, and then she was 90, and her credit score took a dive. So what she should have did was leave it at 10,000, and then bring her balance all the way down to about 1,000, and then drop your credit limit. You see what I did? You got to wait, get your balances down, then you drop your credit limit. Otherwise, you're going to wreck your credit. So be careful how you do this. Okay? So that, when I say cut your limit, make sure you be careful how you do that. Even though I said credit cards are your friend, having big credit card balances, they hurt you. I had a guy in Nova Scotia, he had a $100,000 credit card. Isn't that crazy? Why would you need a $100,000 credit card? So when I did the slideshow with him, he fell off his chair because he said, I don't owe nothing on it. It doesn't matter. So 3% of 100,000, you know what that is? $3,000 gets counted against his income. So I got him to lower it down to 25,000, which is still high, but it's not a $100,000 credit card. That's just crazy. I don't know why you would get a $100,000 credit card. Okay, so now look at this. We canceled our Leons. We cut our American Express by 1,200. and we cut our visa. So now our debt obligations are only 1,300. We still max out our income at 2,600. Now our debt obligations are 1,300. So we have 1,272 for mortgage. So now we're up to 250,000. Pretty neat trick, eh? I created almost 75,000 just by cutting my credit limit in half. So again, even though I said get a credit card, make sure you don't get big balances. Okay? Again, if you have trouble qualifying, pay off some debts, say for, maybe I don't need a 3,000 square foot house. Maybe 1,000 square foot's good. Again, meet with a credit counselor who can help. But the great thing now with this Robinson Huron money, this is a great opportunity for young couples, young families to get into home ownership. It's a great opportunity for homeowners in Nipissing, low-income homeowners, to fix their houses, to get them renovated. You know, I just showed you an example with a new kitchen, new bathroom, new flooring. And even though you're using your own money and you're not obligated to call housing, you should get it inspected. You should get it inspected before you start work, during the work, and after. You're not obligated, obviously, because it's your own money, but I would recommend you get it because you can get the services of the local tribal council, and he has a BCIN number, which means a building code identification number. So he's qualified for Ontario Building Code, and he's free. So use him. You know, again, you're not obligated on reserve, but I would in the city. Excuse me. In the city, you're obligated to get a building permit. If it's structural work, you got to go get it, and then it's inspected. You have no choice if you live off reserve. Unless you live in an unorganized township, then it's almost like living on res, because you don't need an inspector. Okay, any questions? So that's kind of it. Like I said in my beginning comments, this Robinson Huron money is a great opportunity to renovate your house, to get into home ownership, to rebuild your credit if you have bad credit. And then a lot of people is you should invest in a tax-free savings account. That's probably your best. If you're working on reserve and you're tax-free, do not buy an RSP because you're just wasting your money. You're already at the lowest tax bracket, which is 0. You can't get any lower than that. So buy tax, and if you've never bought a tax-free savings account, you can go retroactive and you could put 95,000 in there in one shot. And if you have a spouse, you can put more money in there. So again, tax-free savings account. Don't let that savings account fool you. You can buy mutual funds, GICs, stocks and bonds. You can make quite a bit of money in there, depending on your risks. So meet with your bank, and most banks have a financial advisor. Sorry.
Savings account. Is that the one that you said you know, 65?
Yeah, it's 7,000 this year. But if you've never contributed to it, you can go retroactive when it began, which is 95,000 in one shot. Yeah, go ahead, sorry. Yeah. There's no minimum. There's no minimum. No, well, no, yes and no. There's no minimum, but there is a maximum. Right, this year it's 7,500. Last year it was 6,500. So if you've never contributed to this, you can put 95,000 in one shot into it. So any money you make in there, it's tax-free. Any money you pull out is tax-free. And then let's say you put 95,000 in, and let's say 2 years from now you have an emergency and you can pull 20 out, and then you can put that 20,000 back in later. So you can repay it and you won't be penalized. Any money you make in there, you keep, and it's tax-free. It's a no-brainer. This is the only, if you work on reserve, this is the only tax-free investment you have available, is this tax-free savings. So don't let that savings account fool you. You could buy stocks, bonds, mutual funds, GICs in there. Yeah, go ahead. So this is why there was a because I think
So we can do that. The big lump sum savings and then put from it out of the checking account. And lock it in. Yeah. The tax-free account, is that something you put your money in and take some out? But that account is up to like used for the stuff. Checking. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah,
Questions from online.
yeah. Can you earn interest money? Yes, you can. You can earn interest. Guaranteed investment certificate, that's what that is. It's an interest, it's a guaranteed GIC, it guarantees your principal and the interest that you're gonna make, it's guaranteed. So you can make 5% or 6%. You could also lose money though, because if you go into stocks are like this, up and down, up and down. So if you have poor risk tolerance, don't buy stocks because you'll throw up. Because you might, and if you have a loss though, I always tell people, if you lose money on the stock, it's only a loss if you sell it. That loss, it's only a loss if you sell it. Let's say you buy Ford stock and it goes down. Let's say you buy Ford stock for $100 and it drops to 80, so you lost 20 bucks, but it's only on paper. But if you sell that Ford stock, guess what? It's a real loss now. You lost 20. So you got to ride out the lows. You know, during COVID, I lost a lot of money during COVID. But you know what? It was on paper. it came back up. I made all that money that I lost during COVID. It came back up because the stock market returned after COVID. So if I had sold though, when I lost all that money, it would have been a real loss. I would have lost that money, but I just hung in there. If your stocks lose, just hang in there. Don't panic and wait for it to come back up. So, but if you're not risk tolerant and you're going to throw up, if you see your stock go down, don't go into the stock market. So yes, you can make interest. You can also lose money. But again, it's only a loss if you actually sell it. So you can buy stocks in there. The best way to prevent a loss is buy a mutual fund because it spreads the risk out between stocks, bonds, and it's kind of balanced. It's called a balanced account. Some of it is equity, some of it is bonds, GICs. It's all in one stock. So that's the best way you can invest as well. But when you meet with a financial advisor at the bank, they'll ask about your risk tolerance, and they'll ask you what your age is, because if you're 60, 65. They're not going to put you in high risk stock because you don't have time to make up the money. They'll say bonds, GICs again. Okay. Any other questions online? No. Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
Just wondering, if this money does come in, will it not be excuse will that affect anyone?
I don't think so. No, because you guys had land claim before. It was never affected. It's not an income. Same thing with OW, eh? Yeah. So you'll still get OW. Yeah. Go ahead.
Is there a working relationship with mainstream banks in town?
Well, actually, they are. They're coming here. So which banks are coming?
Yeah, these are
Okay, yeah. I deal with TD Wealth Management. The only problem with TD though is you can't check your credit report on their app. Check your credit score. The other banking apps, you can check your credit score. TD Bank, for some reason, they don't have that. So I work with TD Wealth. That's who I put my money in. Okay. You can open more than one tax-free savings account, but you can't exceed that limit. So you could put 3,500 in TD and 3,500 in Scotia, but you can't exceed that because Revenue Canada will know when you exceed that, then there's a penalty. So that's why if you want to go TD, you just got to make sure you don't exceed that 6,500 or it's 7,500 this year. Don't exceed the 7,500 yearly contribution. Okay. No, you can't go 75. No. You can only have one. No. Someone, if you're online, someone asks, can I open, 10 $7,500? No, it's just, it has to be, your combined income, contribution has to be 7,500 per year. Not, you don't open 10 accounts and put 70, no. But if you go, like I said, if you've never invested in one, you can go up to 95,000 in one shot today. If you got the money today, you could put 95,000. Then 95. Yes, yeah, because you're going back to when tax-free was first started about 8 years ago or 9 years ago. It is if you started from day one, okay? And then you would hit your max. And then every January, you can contribute 7,500. Next year, 7,500. Next year, 7,500 next year. Okay? Yeah. Yeah, but you're going to get taxed. Yeah. So were you earning taxable income when you paid the RSP? Is it, and you're not taxed? Okay, don't buy no more RSPs. If you pull it out, you're going to get taxed at 30%. So you know what an RSP does? This is what an RSP does. An RSP doesn't give you tax-free income. So this is what an RSP does. It defers your tax to future. So when you bought the RSP, you got a tax deduction, but you're going to pay tax later when you retire because you're going to be at a lower tax bracket. So when you pull that money out, it's going to be at a lower tax rate. That's the whole point of an R. It doesn't, people think it's tax-free. No, it just pushes the tax burden in 20 years from now when you retire. But you're going to be at a lower income when you retire. You're not going to be making the same as when you're working. So you'll be at a lower tax bracket. So when you pull that money out, you'll be taxed at a lower rate. But this one, tax-free, you don't get taxed, period. That's why it's very popular. You pull money out, it's tax-free. And any money you make in there, it's tax-free. But don't let that savings account, that's why a lot of people think it's just a regular savings account and you're not going to earn much. No, it's people don't understand you could buy a lot of stuff with that. Okay?
So if somebody does buy our RHT, then they should just leave it alone.
Just leave it alone and then just draw it when you retire. Yeah, so you can turn it into a RIF when you're 70 and get an installment payments. I think after 70, you have to make it an annuity. Yeah, don't touch it until you actually retire. Just leave it there. Because if you do pull it out, you're going to be taxed at 30%. So it's good when you're retired though, because you're at a tax-free or you're at a lower taxable income, so you'll pay a lower tax when you actually pull it out. Okay? Yeah?
Well, a year ago,
Yeah.
basically, you would.
Yeah, RIF.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what you got to do. And then you get are you getting an annuity every year, monthly payment? Okay, yeah. And you can apply for OAS as well. Like on reserve, a lot of people don't pay CPP. So you cannot get CPP if you've never paid into it. Yeah, so then the only thing you can apply for is OAS and GIS, yeah. But you have to file your tax return every year. Yeah, so then that's the only way. It's like your child tax credit. Child tax credit is only payable if you file your tax. So you got to file your tax return every year. So, and then your old age and that other money you get is based on your tax return. It's based on your income. So the lower your income, the more you get. The higher your income, the lower you'll get. So it's all based on what your tax return says. So for OAS, yeah. Yeah. My dad, I think when he retired, he got $30 a month because he was collecting 4 pensions. So he had pensions everywhere. So he was doing okay. So, you know, I think if you hit I don't know what the limit is, yearly income, you don't get nothing. Because like you'd have to be a government worker like for 40 years to get that. So, okay, any questions? I'm going to hang around for a bit if you want to talk to me. So thank you, everyone. Again, talk to a financial advisor at your bank. Make sure you take your notice assessment from CRA with you, and then they'll see what to do. And make sure you tell them you're tax-free so they don't make you buy an RSP, okay? Even if your notice assessment says you have tax RSP contribution space, don't use it because you're making tax-free income right now. Don't buy an RSP, okay? If you're working off reserve, you're paying tax, do the tax-free savings account first and then do the RSP last, okay? Because the RSP, I mean, everybody's going to this tax-free savings account. It's a no-brainer, yeah?
It says that when they uncover taxes and everything is lost, that there's some forms that you fill out and designate your certificate.
Yes.
Get in there.
Yes. Okay, so she just asked the questions for those people online. If you pass away and you invest in these tax-free, who gets the money? Well, actually, when you open an account, they're going to ask you who's the beneficiary. So you're going to list the beneficiary right when you open the account. My beneficiary is my wife. If I die, my wife gets my money. If she dies before me, I get the money. If we both die, it goes to the kids, all our kids, 5 kids. So. It's the paperwork. You got to fill out that paperwork as you open the account, because when you open the tax deed, they'll ask you who's the beneficiary if you pass away. So they'll ask you when you open that. Same thing with an RSP, they'll ask you. So those people online, people are asking what happens if you die and you have one of these. Well, when you open them, you're going to list the beneficiary right from the get-go. The other thing I tell people is get a will. Get a will. That way and then your savings accounts, you would list your beneficiaries. Okay? So, yeah, go ahead. I would get a professional will. Have you guys ever had a will workshop here? Yeah, there's free work. You know, people don't realize in Nipissing, this finance workshop's been going on for 6 years. We've had will workshops. I don't, how many people attended? Not much, eh? Yeah, so you can get it. There's a will workshop that IS does. I know in some communities they have it twice a year. People should come and do that. They'll show you how to fill out a will, and then they'll help you. That way, if you pass away, there's no, your estates can be settled quickly. In Wiki, it takes a long time for estates to be settled on the land. There's a lot of land in estates in Wiki. So that's why I tell people, get a will so that your estate is settled quickly, especially the land part. Okay? Okay, I'll end the present. You can end the stream. So thank you, everyone. We're just going to end the stream there. Okay, thanks. Yeah, go. So how many people are online?